Captain Jake Martinez stared at the massive structure floating in space ahead of his ship. The thing was bigger than any city he had ever seen on Earth. It looked like someone had built a giant metal flower with thousands of petals, each one glowing with soft blue light. His hands gripped the armrests of his command chair as he tried to understand what he was looking at. "Sir, we're getting a signal," said Lieutenant Lisa Brooks from her station. She was the smartest person Jake knew about alien life, even though they had never met any aliens before today. "It's not in any language we know, but the computer is trying to translate it." Jake nodded. This was the moment humanity had dreamed about for hundreds of years. First contact with aliens. His ship, the UES Phoenix, was the fastest and most advanced vessel Earth had ever built. It had taken them 6 months to reach this far into space, using their new faster-than-light engine. "Put it on the main screen," Jake ordered. The view screen flickered, and suddenly Jake was looking at something that made his brain hurt. The creature had 6 arms, skin that changed colors like oil on water, and 3 eyes arranged in a triangle on its face. It spoke in musical tones that reminded Jake of wind chimes. "Greetings, new species," the computer's voice said, translating the alien's words. "I am Ambassador Veltar of the Galactic Confederation. We welcome you to our space. Please do not be afraid. We mean you no harm." Jake stood up and straightened his uniform. "This is Captain Jake Martinez of the human ship Phoenix. We come in peace and hope to learn about your people." The alien's colors shifted to brighter shades, which Jake guessed meant it was happy. "Excellent. We have been watching your species for some time. You seem to be peaceful plant eaters like most civilized races. We would be honored to welcome you to our confederation." Jake blinked. "Plant eaters?" He looked at Lisa, who was frowning at her readings. She shook her head slightly, telling him not to correct the alien right now. "We would be honored to meet with you," Jake said carefully. 3 days later, Jake found himself in the strangest place he had ever seen. The alien space station was like being inside a giant garden. Trees grew from the walls, flowers bloomed in mid-air, and streams of water flowed in impossible directions. Everything was designed for beings who ate plants and loved nature. Ambassador Helen Torres had arrived from Earth on the fastest ship they could send. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes who had spent her whole life talking to difficult people. Now she had to talk to difficult aliens. "The Galactic Confederation has 847 different species," Ambassador Veltar explained, as he led them through a corridor filled with singing plants. "We have had peace for over 3,000 years. War is something we left behind long ago, like eating meat or fighting over territory." Helen nodded politely, but Jake saw her make a note on her tablet. Back on Earth, Admiral Ryan Cole was probably having a heart attack reading their reports. The Admiral was Earth's top military man, and he had spent weeks preparing for the possibility that these aliens might be hostile. Instead, they seemed to think fighting was something only primitive species did. "Tell us about your military," Helen said carefully. Veltar's colors went dim, like he was confused. "Military? We do not understand this word." "Your defenders? The people who protect you from enemies?" "Oh, you must mean our peacekeepers. They help settle disagreements and rescue people from accidents. But we have no enemies. Why would anyone want to hurt others?" Jake and Helen exchanged looks. On Earth, every nation had armies. Every planet in human space had defense forces. The idea of a civilization without any military was like imagining people who didn't need to breathe. Over the next few weeks, Jake explored Confederation space while Helen worked on diplomatic agreements. What he found amazed and worried him. The aliens had incredible technology. They could move planets, control stars, and build machines that seemed like magic. But they had no weapons, no battle tactics, and no idea how to fight. Their ships were beautiful and fast, but they had no armor or shields. Their stations were massive and complex, but they had no defenses. When Jake asked about security, they showed him locks that could be opened by saying please, and guards who were trained to give hugs to upset visitors. Dr. Lisa Brooks spent her time studying the aliens and making reports. She found that most Confederation species were like Earth's plant-eating animals. They were naturally peaceful, lived in groups, and avoided conflict. Many of them had never developed the part of their brains that humans used for fighting and strategy. It's like they evolved differently than us, Lisa explained to Jake over dinner in his quarters. Humans are predators. We hunt, we fight, we compete. These aliens are more like, well, like sheep. Very smart, very advanced sheep, but still sheep. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Admiral Ryan Cole was reading their reports and getting more nervous every day. He had started what he called war games, practice battles where human ships fought against each other to stay sharp. The Confederation aliens who observed these exercises were shocked. "Why do your ships try to hurt each other?" Ambassador Veltar asked Helen during one of their meetings. "They're not really trying to hurt each other," Helen explained. "It's practice, training, so they know what to do if there's ever a real fight." Veltar's colors went very dark. "But why would there ever be a real fight? Who would you fight?" Helen didn't know how to answer that. On Earth, the answer was obvious. You prepared to fight anyone who might threaten you. But these aliens seemed to have forgotten that lesson, if they had ever learned it at all. The Confederation Council met to discuss humanity's application for membership. Jake watched from the observation deck as hundreds of different alien species debated in their strange languages. Some looked like plants that had learned to walk. Others resembled Earth's sea creatures, but with extra arms and glowing parts. A few were so weird that Jake couldn't figure out which end was their head. After hours of discussion, Ambassador Veltar approached them with news. "The Council has reached a decision," he announced. "We will welcome humanity into the Confederation, but with conditions. Your species shows signs of aggressive tendencies that concern us. We must study you more before full membership is granted." Helen kept her face calm, but Jake could see she was annoyed. "What kind of study?" "We want to understand why you prepare for violence when there is no need, why you practice fighting when there are no enemies. Some council members worry that you might bring conflict to our peaceful galaxy." That night, Jake sent a message back to Earth. Admiral Cole needed to know what they were dealing with. The aliens were more advanced than humans in every way except one. They had forgotten how to fight. They lived in a galaxy where nothing had threatened them for thousands of years. As Jake looked out at the peaceful alien station, with its gardens and singing creatures, he wondered what would happen if something dangerous ever did come to their galaxy. These aliens wouldn't know how to defend themselves. They had built a beautiful, advanced civilization, but they had also made themselves completely helpless. He didn't know it yet, but that question would be answered much sooner than anyone expected. General Patricia Hayes was eating breakfast when the emergency call came through. She had been a soldier for 30 years and had fought in more battles than she could count. Her coffee was still hot when Admiral Cole's face appeared on her communication screen, and she could see the worry in his eyes. "Patricia, we have a problem," Admiral Cole said. "A big one. The aliens need our help." Hayes set down her coffee cup. She had been expecting this call ever since Captain Martinez sent his reports about the Confederation. A galaxy full of peaceful aliens with no way to defend themselves was like a house with no locks in a bad neighborhood. "What kind of problem?" she asked. "Something called the Devourers. They've attacked 3 Confederation worlds in the past week. The aliens are panicking." Hayes grabbed her uniform jacket. "I'll be there in 10 minutes." At Earth Command, Hayes found chaos. The main screen showed a map of the galaxy with red dots marking attacked worlds. Each red dot represented millions of dead aliens. The Confederation had sent every piece of information they had about the enemy, but it wasn't much. "They call them Devourers because that's what they do," Dr. Lisa Brooks explained. She had returned from Confederation space the week before. "They eat everything. Plants, animals, even the metal and rock. They strip planets down to nothing." Commander Alex Turner studied the tactical reports. He was young but smart, and Hayes had been training him to think like a soldier instead of a pilot. "The Confederation forces tried to fight them," he said. "It didn't go well." Hayes looked at the battle recordings. What she saw made her angry. The Confederation ships were beautiful and advanced, but they flew in perfect formations like they were in a parade. When the enemy attacked, they scattered like frightened birds. They had no tactics, no strategy, no idea how to coordinate their defense. The Devourers were different. Their ships looked like living things made of black metal and bone. They moved, together like a pack of wolves surrounding their prey and tearing it apart. Where Confederation ships tried to avoid conflict, the Devourers sought it out and embraced it. Captain Nina Foster had volunteered to take her stealth ship into Devourer territory. She was the best pilot Hayes knew, able to fly through asteroid fields in the dark while eating lunch. Her ship, the Silent Wing, was invisible to most sensors and could go places other ships couldn't. I got close to one of their fleets, Nina reported over the secure channel. These things aren't like anything we've seen before. They're not machines, but they're not exactly alive either. It's like someone crossed a starship with a giant insect. The recordings Nina brought back showed the truth. The Devourers were a hive mind, thousands of individual creatures that thought and acted as one. Their ships could change shape, grow new weapons, and repair damage by eating whatever was nearby. They had been sleeping somewhere in the empty space between galaxies for 2,000 years, and now they were hungry. The Confederation tried to talk to them, Ambassador Helen Torres said during the emergency meeting. The Devourers responded by eating the ambassador and his entire ship. Hayes studied the enemy ship designs. They were built for one purpose: to destroy and consume. Every surface had teeth or claws or weapons. There was no beauty in them, no wasted space, nothing that wasn't designed for war. They reminded her of sharks, if sharks could fly through space and spit energy beams. How many ships do they have? Hayes asked. Unknown, Turner replied. Maybe thousands, maybe millions. They keep coming from the edge of the galaxy where no one has ever explored. The Confederation Council had called an emergency session. Hayes watched as hundreds of alien species argued in panic. They had technologies that could move stars and reshape planets, but they couldn't understand basic military strategy. Some suggested trying to negotiate. Others wanted to hide and hope the Devourers would go away. A few talked about evacuating their entire civilizations to another galaxy. Ambassador Veltar looked older and dimmer than Hayes remembered from the recordings. His people were some of the first the Devourers had attacked. We have never faced anything like this, he admitted. Our peacekeepers are not trained for war. Our ships are not built for battle. We don't know how to fight. But you do, said another alien, one that looked like a walking tree with crystal leaves. Your species understands violence. Will you help us? Hayes felt the weight of the moment. Earth had 4 million people in space, scattered across a dozen colonies. The Confederation had trillions of beings across thousands of worlds. If the Devourers weren't stopped, they would eventually reach human space too. We'll help, Hayes said. But you have to understand, fighting a war isn't pretty. People die. Ships get destroyed. Worlds might be lost. Are you prepared for that? The way. Aliens looked at each other with their strange eyes and changing colors and glowing patterns. They were used to solving problems by talking, by negotiating, by finding peaceful solutions. The idea of acceptable losses was foreign to them. We have no choice, Veltar finally said. If we don't fight, we all die anyway. Hayes nodded. Then, we fight, but we do it my way. The first joint operation was small. Hayes took 3 human ships and 6 Confederation vessels to investigate a Devourer scout group. The aliens flew their ships like they were afraid to scratch the paint. The humans flew like they were already in a fight. When they found the enemy, Hayes saw immediately what the problem was. The Confederation ships spread out and tried to communicate. The Devourers ignored their peaceful signals and attacked with everything they had. All ships attack Formation Delta, Hayes ordered. Target their command ship first. The human ships moved like they had trained together for years, which they had. They covered each other, coordinated their fire, and fought as a unit. The Confederation ships watched in amazement as 3 small human vessels destroyed 5 larger enemy ships in under 10 minutes. But Hayes knew this was just the beginning. The scout group they had defeated was tiny compared to what was coming. The Confederation had shown her their deep space sensors, and the readings were terrifying. A massive Devourer fleet was moving toward the heart of Confederation space, eating everything in its path. How long do we have? Turner asked. Hayes looked at the tactical display. 6 months, maybe less. They'll hit the major Confederation worlds before winter. That night, Hayes sent a message to Earth. Admiral Cole needed to mobilize everything, every ship, every soldier, every weapon they could build. The Confederation was about to learn what humans had known for thousands of years. Sometimes, to protect what you love, you have to be willing to destroy what threatens it. The Devourers had made one mistake. They had awakened humanity's protective instincts. And humans, Hayes knew, were very good at protecting their own, even if their own now included billions of aliens who still didn't understand what war really meant. The real fight was about to begin. Colonel Sam Richardson had never thought he would be teaching aliens how to kill. He stood in the training facility on the Confederation's main military station, watching a group of creatures that looked like giant blue crabs trying to hold human weapons. They were clumsy and slow, and they kept apologizing when they missed their targets. "Stop saying sorry," Richardson told them for the 100th time. "The enemy won't care about your feelings. If you miss, you die. If your friends miss, they die. Now try again." The aliens looked at each other with their sideways eyes. They had never heard anyone talk like this before. In their world, making mistakes meant you said sorry and tried to do better. In Richardson's world, making mistakes in combat meant people died. Richardson was a Special Forces soldier who had spent 20 years fighting in Earth's worst conflicts. He was short and thick with scars on his hands and a voice like gravel. The Confederation had asked Earth to send their best teacher, and Richardson was the man who turned regular soldiers into killers. "Sir," one of the crab-like aliens said, in their clicking language, "this seems very violent. Are you sure there is no peaceful way to stop the Devourers?" Richardson pointed to the tactical display showing the latest reports. 3 more Confederation worlds had been stripped bare in the past week. Billions of aliens were dead, their planets left as empty rocks floating in space. "You want to negotiate with something that ate your homeworld?" Richardson asked. "You want to have a peaceful talk with creatures that turned your children into food? There is no peaceful way. There is only the way that works." Dr. Emma Price was having her own problems in the weapons lab. She was Earth's best military engineer, a small woman with quick hands and a mind that could solve any technical puzzle. The Confederation had given her access to their most advanced technology, and she was trying to turn their peaceful tools into weapons of war. "This energy beam is designed to help plants grow faster," she explained to her alien assistant, a floating jellyfish creature named Quolin. "But if we increase the power and focus the beam, it can cut through Devourer armor like butter." Quolin changed colors to show distress. "But what about the plants? If we use their growth energy for violence, won't that hurt the natural balance?" Price rubbed her temples. She had been working for 16 hours straight, trying to weaponize every piece of Confederation technology she could find. The aliens kept worrying about side effects and environmental impact and the feelings of their equipment. They acted like their machines had emotions. "The Devourers don't care about natural balance," Price said. "They're going to eat every plant in the galaxy if we don't stop them. Now help me attach this targeting system." Admiral Kate Sullivan was facing the biggest challenge of all. She stood in the Confederation's Fleet Command Center, looking at a display showing 2,000 ships from dozens of different species. Each ship was beautiful and unique, but they had never worked together as a fighting force. Sullivan had commanded Earth's Space Navy for 10 years. She was a tall woman with gray hair and cold blue eyes who could coordinate 1,000 ships like she was conducting an orchestra. But Earth's ships were all built the same way, with the same weapons and the same training. These alien ships were all different. "The Zephyrian ships are fast but fragile," she told her staff. "The crystalline vessels have powerful shields but weak weapons. The botanical ships can repair themselves but can't hurt anything stronger than a fruit fly." Her second-in-command, Captain Alex Turner, nodded. "How do we make them work together?" "Teach them combined arms," Sullivan said, "something they've never heard of. Combined arms was an old human concept. You used different types of forces to support each other. Fast ships scouted and harassed the enemy. Tough ships absorbed damage and drew fire. Heavy ships delivered the killing blow. Each type covered the weaknesses of the others. The problem was that the aliens had never thought this way. Each species fought alone, using their own ships and their own tactics. The idea of sacrificing some ships to save others horrified them. Sergeant Mike Johnson was training Confederation ground forces on a planet called Haven. He was a career soldier who had fought in every type of terrain Earth had to offer. Now he was trying to teach aliens how to fight in environments they had never seen as battlefields. "Your cities are all wrong," Johnson told the local defense force. They were tall, thin creatures that looked like walking plants with too many arms. "You build everything pretty and open and full of light. That's perfect for living, but terrible for fighting." The alien commander, whose name sounded like wind through leaves, rustled his branches in confusion. "How should cities be built?" Johnson showed them images from Earth's military history. Cities with walls and fortified positions. Buildings designed to provide cover and limit enemy movement. Streets that could be blocked and defended. "Your people need to learn that sometimes you have to destroy beautiful things to save them," Johnson said. "Sometimes you have to turn gardens into fortresses." The first major battle came sooner than anyone expected. A Devourer fleet attacked the Confederation world of Serenity, a planet covered in crystal forests and singing streams. The Confederation fleet moved to defend it using Admiral Sullivan's new tactics. Sullivan watched from her command ship as 2,000 Confederation vessels arranged themselves according to her battle plan. The fast scouts spread out to gather information. The shield ships formed a protective wall. The heavy ships waited behind them, ready to strike. When the Devourers arrived, they found something they had never encountered before. Instead of scattered, frightened prey, they faced an organized military force that fought like humans had taught them. The battle lasted 6 hours. The Confederation lost 300 ships, but they destroyed the entire Devourer fleet. For the first time since the war began, they had won a real victory. Colonel Richardson's trained soldiers held the ground installations while the enemy tried to land. Dr. Price's modified weapons cut through Devourer armor like it was paper. Sergeant Johnson's fortified cities became killing grounds that trapped the invaders. But the victory came with a cost that shocked the Confederation. 300 ships meant thousands of dead aliens. Species that had never lost a single being to violence now had to count their war dead. Ambassador Helen Torres found herself in emergency session after emergency session as alien leaders struggled with the reality of war. "Your people are too comfortable with death," complained an alien that looked like a walking flower. "You talk about acceptable losses like they don't matter." "Every loss matters," Torres replied. "But some losses prevent greater losses. If we hadn't fought at Serenity, the Devourers would have killed everyone on that planet. Sometimes you have to choose between bad and worse." The Confederation Council was splitting into factions. Some wanted to keep fighting using human methods. Others wanted to return to their peaceful ways and hope for a miracle. A few were starting to whisper that humans might be as dangerous as the Devourers in their own way. General Hayes received reports from all her commanders. The training was working, but slowly. The weapons modifications were effective, but the aliens were afraid of them. The new tactics were successful, but they required a willingness to sacrifice that most aliens didn't have. "They're learning," Hayes told Admiral Cole during their weekly conference. "But they're also getting scared of us. Some of them think we're teaching them to be monsters." "Are we?" Cole asked. Hayes looked at the casualty reports from Serenity. Thousands of aliens dead, but millions saved. Ships destroyed, but worlds protected. It was the mathematics of war, something humans understood, but aliens were just learning. "We're teaching them to survive," she said. "Whether that makes them monsters or not isn't up to us." The war was changing everyone involved. The Confederation was learning that peace had a price, and sometimes that price was paid in blood. Humanity was learning that being the galaxy's protector meant making choices that others couldn't or wouldn't make. And somewhere in the dark between galaxies, more Devourer fleets were waking up, hungry and angry, and ready to feed on everything in their path. The real war was just beginning. Fleet Admiral Chris Walker stood before the largest military gathering in galactic history. In the massive hangar of the Confederation's war station, Representatives from 400 alien species waited to hear his battle plan. Walker was a big man with steady hands and eyes that had seen too much combat. He had fought in Earth's colonial wars and survived battles that would have broken weaker men. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings," Walker said, his voice carrying across the silent hangar. "We have located the Devourer homeworld. The war ends there one way or another." The aliens shifted nervously. Many had never seen a human military leader before, and Walker's presence filled the room like a storm about to break. He wore simple battle dress with no decorations except his rank insignia and a small pin showing Earth's blue marble against black space. Major Sarah Kim stepped forward with her intelligence report. She was small and quiet, the kind of person who could disappear in a crowd. But her mind was sharp as a blade, and she had built the most effective spy network the galaxy had ever seen. "The homeworld is located in the void sector, beyond the edge of mapped space," Kim explained. "It's not a planet in the normal sense. The Devourers have consumed 17 solar systems and merged them into one massive construct. Think of it as a planet-sized hive with the resources of multiple worlds." The alien commanders looked at the holographic display with horror. The Devourer homeworld was bigger than most moons, covered in living metal and organic weapons. Millions of enemy ships moved around it like blood cells in a body. "How many defenders?" asked Admiral Zektar, one of the few Confederation officers who had learned human tactical thinking. "Unknown," Kim replied. "Our estimates range from 50,000 to 5 million ships. The construct itself appears to be one giant weapon capable of destroying fleets from incredible distances." Dr. Paul Grant had been working day and night in his laboratory, pushing the boundaries of what the Confederation considered acceptable warfare. He was a thin man with wild hair and clothes stained with chemicals from his experiments. The aliens had given him access to their most advanced technology, and he had turned it into something that terrified them. "I've developed what we're calling planet crackers," Grant announced to the shocked assembly. "Devices that can destabilize a world's core and tear it apart from the inside. We have 6 of them ready for deployment." The alien commanders erupted in panicked chatter. Planet-killing weapons were beyond anything they had ever imagined. Some species had the technology to move planets or change their orbits, but the idea of destroying an entire world was horrific to them. "Dr. Grant," said Ambassador Veltar, his colors dim with distress, "surely there must be another way. To destroy an entire world, even an enemy world, seems excessive." Walker's voice cut through the debate like a knife. "The Devourers have destroyed 43 Confederation worlds in the past year. They've killed over 200 billion beings. They don't negotiate, they don't surrender, and they don't stop. This is the only way to end the war." Commander Lisa Park had spent 6 months training mixed species combat units. She was a career soldier who had learned to work with beings so different from humans that communication itself was a challenge. Her assault battalions were the first truly integrated military forces in galactic history. "My people are ready," Park reported. "We have 300,000 ground troops from 80 different species. They've learned human tactics and they understand what needs to be done." The plan Walker outlined was ambitious beyond anything the Confederation had ever attempted. A massive fleet would attack the Devourer homeworld from 6 directions simultaneously. Fast ships would clear the outer defenses while heavy cruisers engaged the main enemy fleet. Ground forces would land on the construct itself to plant Grant's planet crackers while the fleet held off reinforcements. "This operation will require sacrifices," Walker told the assembly. "We will lose ships, we will lose people. Some of you will not return home. But if we succeed, we end this war forever." The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some alien species wanted more time to find alternatives. Others worried about the moral implications of using planet-killing weapons. A few questioned whether humans should be leading the operation at all. It was Admiral Zektar who ended the discussion. He was an ancient being whose species had fought the Devourers 2,000 years ago. His people had been nearly extinct when the enemy finally withdrew to the void between galaxies. "I have seen what happens when the Devourers are allowed to continue," Zektar said, his crystalline voice ringing through the hangar. "My homeworld is a dead rock because we tried. to find peaceful solutions. The humans are right. This ends now, or it never ends. The vote was close, but it passed. The combined fleet would attack in 1 month. Major Kim's intelligence network had discovered something else that changed everything. Hidden in the Confederation's own records were references to other species that had opposed humanity's military leadership. They were forming secret alliances, planning to limit human power after the war ended. Some of our allies are planning to turn on us, Kim reported to Walker during a secure briefing. The Aurelia Syndicate, the Crystal Collective, and at least 6 other major species. They're afraid we're becoming too powerful. Walker wasn't surprised. He had seen the way some aliens looked at human soldiers, with fear mixed with gratitude. They needed humanity's protection, but they were starting to realize that protection came with a price. Let them plan, Walker said. Right now they need us more than we need them. After we deal with the Devourers, we'll handle whatever comes next. The month of preparation passed quickly. Human engineers worked around the clock to modify Confederation ships for the assault. Training programs pushed alien soldiers to their limits. Supply chains stretched across the galaxy to support the largest military operation in history. Dr. Grant's planet crackers were loaded onto specially modified ships with volunteer crews. Everyone knew it was a one-way mission. The devices had to be planted manually, and there would be no time for escape once they were activated. Commander Park's ground forces practiced assault tactics on mock-up stations built to resemble the Devourer construct. The aliens learned to fight in environments that would have driven their ancestors insane with terror. Admiral Sullivan coordinated the movement of over 10,000 ships from across the galaxy. Each fleet had its role, its timing, its specific objectives. The logistics alone were staggering. But Walker knew that numbers and planning would only take them so far. The real test would come when they faced the Devourers on their home ground, surrounded by everything the enemy had built over millennia of conquest. 3 days before the attack, Walker received a message from Earth. Admiral Cole had been monitoring the political situation in the Confederation. More species were joining, the secret alliance against humanity. They wanted to use human military power to win the war, then find a way to contain or control that power afterward. They're making a mistake, Cole warned. If they try to move against us after we've saved them, it won't end well for anyone. Walker looked out at the assembled fleet. Ships from hundreds of worlds, carrying crews that represented every major species in the galaxy. They were united now by necessity, but that unity would not survive the end of the war. One crisis at a time, Walker replied. First, we win this war. Then we deal with the peace. The final briefing was held 12 hours before the attack. Walker stood before his commanders one last time, looking at faces both human and alien. Some would not survive the next day, and everyone knew it. Remember why we're here, Walker told them. Not for glory, not for conquest, but because someone has to stand between the darkness and the light. Today, we are that someone. The fleet began moving toward the void sector. Behind them, the Confederation held its breath and waited. Ahead of them lay the Devourer homeworld, and the final battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. Walker settled into his command chair and began the countdown to humanity's greatest test. Supreme Admiral Tony Clark watched the Devourer homeworld grow larger on his main screen. It was the most terrifying thing he had ever seen. The construct was like a cancer made of metal and bone, covered in weapons that could destroy moons. Around it, millions of enemy ships moved in perfect formation, waiting for the Confederation fleet to arrive. Clark was the best military commander Earth had ever produced. He had planned this battle for months, studying every detail of the enemy's defenses. Now, as his flagship led 10,000 Allied ships toward the ultimate fight, he felt the weight of the entire galaxy on his shoulders. "All fleets report ready," said his communications officer. "We have ships from 300 species waiting for your signal." Clark nodded. Behind him stood representatives from the major alien powers, watching humanity lead them into the most important battle in galactic history. Some looked grateful, others looked afraid of what humans might become after this was over. "Begin the attack," Clark ordered. The battle started with a light show that could be seen from neighboring star systems. 10,000 Confederation ships opened fire on the Devourer defenses, while millions of enemy vessels rose to meet them, space filled with energy beams, missiles, and explosions that lit up the darkness like deadly stars. Captain Rebecca Stone led the ground assault force toward the construct's surface. She was a veteran of Earth's worst conflicts, small and tough with scars on her face and ice in her veins. Her job was the most dangerous of all: get close enough to plant Dr. Grant's planet crackers while the biggest space battle in history raged around her. Approaching landing zone Alpha, Stone reported as her ship dodged enemy fire. Devourer defenses are heavy, but our people are punching through. The construct's surface was a nightmare landscape of living metal and organic weapons. Devourer warriors emerged from the ground itself, creatures that were part machine and part insect, all teeth and claws and killing rage. Stone's mixed species assault teams hit the surface running, using every tactic humanity had taught them. Commander Lisa Park's soldiers fought like demons through the maze of tunnels inside the construct. The Devourers had built their world as one giant hive, and every corridor was a death trap. But Park's people had trained for this, learning to fight in close quarters where their human-taught skills gave them the advantage. Package 1 is in position, Park reported over the battle channel, beginning installation of the device. Supreme Admiral Clark coordinated the space battle from his command ship, while enemy fire turned the space around him into a hell of light and destruction. The Confederation fleet was holding, but barely. For every Devourer ship they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. "Sir, we're losing the left flank," reported Admiral Sullivan. "The crystalline fleet has taken heavy damage. They're requesting permission to withdraw." Clark's jaw tightened. "Negative. If they withdraw now, the whole line collapses. Tell them to hold position at all costs." It was the kind of order that alien commanders still struggled with. In their peaceful galaxy, no one had ever been asked to fight to the death, but Clark knew that sometimes winning required sacrifices that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Dr. Grant's planet crackers were incredible weapons, but they required time to work. Each device had to be placed at specific points in the EO construct's core and then activated simultaneously. Captain Stone's teams fought their way deeper into the enemy stronghold, while the space battle raged overhead. "This is Stone. Package 3 is in position. We've lost contact with Team 5. "Stone, this is Clark. How much more time do you need?" 20 minutes for the remaining devices, maybe 30 if we run into more resistance." Clark looked at his tactical display. The Confederation fleet was being slowly destroyed. Even with their superior tactics and human leadership, they were outnumbered 10 to 1. He wasn't sure they could hold for 20 more minutes. "All ships, this is Clark. We hold this line. No matter what it costs, we hold." The battle reached its climax when the Devourer command ship, a monster the size of a small moon, entered the fight. Its weapons could destroy entire fleets with single shots, and it began systematically tearing apart the Confederation forces. "Sir, that thing is going to kill us all," Sullivan warned. Clark made a decision that would be remembered for 1,000 years. "All heavy ships target the command vessel. Ramming speed. We're going to take it down the hard way." 500 Confederation ships, led by Clark's own flagship, charged directly at the enemy command vessel. It was suicide, but it was also the only way to buy Stone's teams the time they needed to complete their mission. The charge became legend. Ship after ship rammed into the Devourer command vessel, their crews dying to protect billions of lives across the galaxy. Clark's flagship was among the last, smashing into the enemy ship's core and finally bringing down the massive beast. "This is Stone. All packages are in position. 30 seconds to detonation." The evacuation signal went out across all channels. Every Confederation ship that could still move began retreating from the construct at maximum speed. Many didn't make it. The bravest beings in galactic history died buying those final seconds. When the planet crackers activated, the Devourer homeworld came apart like a flower made of fire. The explosion was visible from systems dozens of light years away. 2,000 years of Devourer expansion ended in a blast that shook the foundations of space itself. Ambassador Daniel Wright arrived at the Confederation capital 3 weeks later to find a galaxy in chaos. The devourers were gone, extinct down to the last creature. But the victory had come at a price that shocked everyone who witnessed it. 1,700 Confederation ships destroyed, Wright reported to Earth. Over 2 million beings dead, including Supreme Admiral Clark and most of his command staff. The alien species are grateful, but they're also terrified of us. The Confederation Council met in emergency session to discuss humanity's new position in galactic politics. The same aliens who had begged for human protection now whispered about containing human power. They had seen what humans could do when pushed to their limits, and it frightened them. General Linda Carter was chosen to establish the new Galactic Defense Doctrine. She was a steady woman who understood both military necessity and political reality. Her job was to help the galaxy accept its new protectors. Like it or not, humans are now the galaxy's military power, Carter explained to the Confederation Council. We didn't ask for this responsibility, but we won't abandon it. The question is whether we work together or whether fear drives us apart. The aliens had no choice but to accept the new reality. Humanity controlled the most advanced military in galactic history. Human tactics had saved their civilization. Human sacrifice had bought their freedom. But human power also meant that the galaxy would never again be the peaceful paradise it had been. Carter established the Human Defense Initiative with bases on 100 worlds. Earth ships patrolled the space lanes, protecting trade and keeping the peace. Human officers trained alien forces in the arts of war they hoped would never be needed again. But everyone knew the truth. The galaxy had learned that peace required guardians, and humans were the only species willing and able to carry that burden. They were feared because they were necessary. They were respected because they had proven their worth in blood and fire. Ambassador Wright sent his final report to Earth as he watched human ships patrol the Confederation capital. We came to the stars looking for friends and found children who needed protection. We're not conquerors or tyrants. We're the adults in a galaxy full of innocence, and that might be the heaviest burden of all. The galaxy was safe, but it was no longer free. Humanity had become its protector, its guardian, and its most feared military force. It was a responsibility they had never wanted and could never abandon. In the end, they had saved everyone, including themselves.